Today we're going to talk about, I think, what is maybe the best kept secret, the great Amazon rebate. Have you guys heard about this? All right, some of you have. Like many of you, we've been hit with inventory placement fee, and so we're just going to share some strategies for you guys to be able to recover this. But before we get started, who are we, and why should you take our advice?
Hey everyone, my name's Vishal. I run a used bulk book operation out of British Columbia, Canada. We've been able to scale our operation to about 30 employees, and we do high seven figures in revenue every year. So as a lot of you may know, the new inventory placement fee that just kicked in, we're sending about 75,000 units a month into FBA, and that's costing our business about $25,000 a month in profit. So we're, like everyone else, trying to find ways to recoup some of that profit.
My name is David. I'm a bookseller out of Denver, Colorado. We run one of the largest bookstores in Colorado. And like Vishal mentioned, the new inventory placement fee is projected to impact our business by about $12,000 per month. And so step one in getting your inventory placement fee back is to take a look at one of the biggest cost centers for many of our businesses besides Amazon fees, which is labor, and specifically recruiting. If you guys look at this slide here, this was our old process for recruiting. It was a 12-step process. Steps like posting the job, screening applicants, interviewing, doing a secondary interview. In fact, just to get to step 8, it took on average 2.5 weeks. And after we did all of that work, there was no guarantee that we were going to hire a high performer. And then when it came time to replace that person, it's a very difficult process to replace them. And so we really took the model of one-click buying from Amazon and we applied it to recruiting. And next slide. And we were able to replace those 12 steps with just one step, with on average 1 day turnaround. Still no guarantee that you're going to find a high performer, but as you can see, it's an easy process to replace that person if they weren't a good fit. And this process, it really applies to all different sizes of businesses, whether you have one employee or 50 employees. And the way that we were able to simplify those 12 steps to one step is by partnering with staffing agencies and temp agencies. Now, you may be asking, David, aren't temp agencies really expensive? In fact, yes, there is typically a premium associated with working with a staffing agency, about 25 to 30%. But when you look at the cost of hiring your own employees, employer taxes, payroll taxes, benefits, paid time off, what you'll find is that the premium that you're paying these staffing agencies isn't that much higher, and you get all of this benefit. And you're really putting the onus of employees showing up off of your business and off of the individual employees and onto this different company that is highly incentivized to get employees into your business. And so with this strategy, we've actually stopped interviewing people. Whenever we need a position filled, we just go out and partner with our staffing agency to bring in a new employee. And this has yielded about a 5% savings in our labor costs.
As David mentioned, labor is by far our biggest expense aside from marketplace fees. So we're trying to always find ways to optimize that value and just increase the production value of the labor we already have. So a picture on the right is our current scanning setup. So each employee scans on average 3,500 books in a day. And the big issue we notice is it's not speed, but human error or slippage could also be a really big problem. So when we scan a profitable book, the employee has to put that book in a box. And when we do a box count at the end of the day, we actually notice there's about a 5 to 7% error rate with what the software says should be in the box versus what's actually in the box. So the solution here is to simplify the process and automate it with a book sorting automation with a conveyor. This should bring our error rate pretty much down to 0, which should provide a 5 to 7% bump to our operation. So if we want to quantify this in terms of dollars, we're pulling on average about 3,000 profitable books per day. And if we're missing out on 180 books at, let's say, roughly a $5 average profit per book, that could be $1,000 in potential profit that's just getting slid down at the end of the table. So a bit of a story time. After I graduated from university in 2020, I went full-time with the business valuations team at PwC. And pretty much 90% of our job was to use Microsoft Excel for financial modeling. And part of our training was PwC didn't give us access to a mouse. We could only use a keyboard, and that was just to force us to learn all the Excel shortcuts. And their objective here was to basically save half a second here and there and let it compound over a 10-hour day. And it does quite add up. Like if you go on YouTube and search up, David was just showing me last night, there's like a Microsoft Excel competition, and these guys are insanely fast at building spreadsheets. So then this got me thinking, what if we could all adopt this strategy for our business? So the picture on our right is a picture of our MF shipping station, where we're processing about 1,000 orders per day. I think it's important to identify all the high frequency areas in your business and in your workstation setups. So for example, I outlined 2 high frequency areas. So the blue circle is pretty much just it's just a trash hole. So we drilled a trash hole into the plywood. So if you're shipping a lot of orders, your poly mailers and shipping labels, receipt paper, stickers, whatever it may be, can produce a lot of trash. So instead of having to reach for the trash every time, we just funnel all the trash in the hole and capture it under the table. Another high frequency area would be in the red rectangle, which is where we sort our orders for USPS to get cheaper shipping rates. Instead of having to walk around the warehouse and touching an order multiple times, that just makes the sorting process a lot more efficient. I think it also comes down to workstation cleanliness. So you want to make sure you have access to 3 to 4 of the most commonly used poly mailers or shipping boxes right at the top. We also highly recommend lifting the laptop and monitor off the table, sliding your label printer and scale under the laptop, and that just frees up a lot more space on the table. And the idea here is to optimize even the most simple tasks so it can compound over 1,000 repetitions.
And just going off script a little bit here, even if you don't have a physical space that you guys are working, maybe you're working on your computer all day long, finding those high frequency areas, maybe you're sending out invoice requests, or maybe you're sending out a bunch of emails, figure out different ways that you can streamline those processes to save, a second here, a second there, and then you'll reap the benefit of the compounding time savings. Now, Eric and Sebastian talked a little bit about KPIs, and hopefully everyone knows what KPIs stand for. And if you aren't really familiar, KPIs are essentially the key metrics that you track within your business to track performance, growth, and progress. And like many businesses out there, we started tracking KPIs from the very beginning about 15, 16 years ago. And, we tracked multiple different numbers within our business, number of orders, how many units we were processing. But we made 2 big mistakes in implementing KPIs within our business that I want to share with you guys. Mistake number 1 is we tracked KPIs, and we started tracking KPIs, but really only use those internally on the leadership team. So my managers and me, we would discuss the different metrics within our business, but it wasn't a company-wide thing. We would just kind of huddle in a group and discuss amongst ourselves. And so again, it really put the responsibility of the company's performance all onto the shoulder of just a few individuals, as opposed to distributing it out to the rest of the team. Mistake number 2 is we had these company-wide KPIs, such as number of orders or maybe units processed, but individuals didn't have stats. And so we didn't have individual stats. And so you can see strategy 3, it says turn KPIs into Sports Center. When you guys think about a game of basketball, Nuggets were playing the Spurs yesterday, and I think they won like 120 to 112. And so you can see that score and you can say, oh, okay, the Nuggets won. But there's so much more than that. You have to be able to track, what was their field goal percentage? What were individual player contributions? There's so many more stats that you can glean more details about the game from than just the score. And so the two changes that we recently made was, number one, we gave every single person within our company a number. And at first, we didn't know what number that would be. And so we just picked the number that we thought was most intuitive. And then from there, if it was a wrong number, we just iterated and then just refined and picked a better number for them. And so that way, every single person within the organization had a number that they could keep a track of. And they could measure. I think Peter Drucker said, you can't improve what you don't measure. And so just giving every employee within our team, in the entire company, the opportunity to grow and improve. And the second thing we did was we spent a few $100s and put TVs in every single department. I think we have like 5 departments within the company. A $200 TV in every single department that had every single person in that department's name listed, along with their number currently and historically. So that way, similar to maybe tracking sports stats, they can see the historic performance. And what we found is that in some cases, we saw a 48% increase. This is Stacy. She's our department manager for our production department. And I mean, quite literally, you could see her looking at the scoreboard at the end of the day to see how she did and how her team did.
So one of the KPIs David and I both track is how many books can one person list in a day for FBA. But the issue with just tracking that is, how do we know what rate that employee should be producing at? So the 20-minute test is a way to unlock an employee's true potential without throwing random KPI targets or target numbers at them. So the 20-minute test is a 4-step process. We start by timing the employee's production rate for a period of 20 minutes. And we actually go to the employee and let them know that we're going to be timing them for 20 minutes. We don't tell them to go fast or slow, just whatever their normal speed is, they can just continue at that rate for 20 minutes. We then multiply that 20-minute rate by 3 to get their hourly rate. We then calculate workable hours. So if they work a 9-hour shift, 1 hour break, that would be 8 hours on the floor actually working. We take the hourly rate that we calculated in step 1 and 2, and we multiply it by 80% to give them some leeway, and we multiply that by workable hours. When we do this math, we found that in most cases, the number that we calculated was 50 to 60% higher than the rate they were actually producing at. So this is our listing data for one FBA listing station prior to the 20-minute test. As you can see, the trailing 5-day average was about 1,007 books per day. And we actually implemented this recently in January and February, as you can see from the listing data on the dates. And then this is our listing data after the 20-minute test. The trailing 5-day average is a lot closer to about 1,500 books. And that's about a 46% increase in production. So the important thing here is we actually didn't force the employees to go faster or tell them to go faster. They pretty much figured out what they could do, and we showed them the number that they actually accomplished. And in most cases, it was way higher than what they've been doing.
All right. So how is this going to, result to more money in your pockets at the end of the day? Let's just do the simple math. We shared 4 different strategies, some of them small improvements, some of them larger. Each of them have compounding benefits. And so if we just take all of the different math, you can kind of see it right here, 143% increase in productivity. Both Vishal and our payroll is pretty comparable, a little over $1 million per year, which is a lot of money. But 143% increase in productivity, that yields a $1.43 million increase in production value. Which, again, is pretty much as good as money in your pocket because, again, they're producing that much more using these strategies. Now, even if your payroll isn't $1 million, imagine how much benefit you could have if your payroll is even just $10,000. It's a huge, huge impact. to be able to get that much of an increase in production value.
And just to add on to that, like as we've grown, we've switched warehouses several times. More space and more people isn't always the solution. So you want to try and work and optimize the productivity or the space that you already have. Thank you everyone for coming out to Miami Seller Conference and listening to David and I speak. We prepared this QR code, which will take you to davidsdreambooks.com website. It'll basically summarize our entire presentation, and there'll be a one-pager with additional resources as well. There's some cool YouTube videos on there, and also a link to the staffing agency that David's company used to use. This isn't the only QR code you should be scanning today. If you go to Avery or Taylor, they have a QR code on their phone. There's also 2 QR codes on the banner for the after party and the yacht. So just plugging that in for them as well. Thank you.